Hi, welcome to the Student Data System walkthrough. This is a program in C++ using Visual Studio IDE, and it's a program to display and operate functions on a set of data from a table. And you can see here the raw data that's being used. This is for student data that could be used by a school, but of course, this type of data set could be applied in a lot of different scenarios, but this is kind of data that's typical for students. So here is the data, and it includes an ID, first name, last name, email address, potentially with errors in it, the input, and then we've got the age of the student, the days for remaining in classes that they're enrolled in, and then the type of degree program that they're enrolled in. So this is the raw data, student data array. This program uses an array. It might be more useful and practical to use vectors, but this program does use arrays. Okay, so that's the overview. The operations that we're going to perform here are described in some of the comments. First, we're going to print all of the, here's the print all of the records, all of the student records. And then there's a lot of different things that could be done here. What I'm doing in this program is looking for invalid email addresses, calculating the average numbers of days that a student has to complete the 3 courses that they have, printing which students are in a particular degree program, and then removing a student record, and then trying to remove it again. So those are what we're eventually going to do on the data here. So to get started, there's a header file, degree header, degree.h, and this sets up a new enumerated data type degree program, since there are 3 distinct degrees that are being used in this project. Security, network, and software. I created an enumerated class specifically for those types, and to go along with it so that we can display the information contained in here, since this actually contains integers in this data type. So to create a string equivalent array of that's this right here. Okay, so those are the degree programs. Then the first step here in order to work with this data is to create a student class, and this will enable us to create objects with all the different instance fields, the ID, the name, last name, email address, age, days to complete the courses, and this is an array of 3. Each student is going to be enrolled in 3 courses. Again, this is a limitation of the arrays. It's a fixed amount, but that's what I'm working with here, 3. So that's defined up here and here. So then here is the degree program enumerated data type as the last instance field. And there's a parameterless constructor here for the student, and then the full constructor with all the field names going in as the arguments. Okay, so that will be more, is declared here, and it'll be defined in the CPP file. And then there's just getters and setters for use throughout this program here, and just a method to print like a header for displaying the output, and then a print function here for printing a single object. Okay, and actually I'm going to run this so that we can see what the output is to get an idea of what we're shooting for here. Scroll up here. So I'm going to display all the students, as I said, all their data. This is basically just a representation and output of that table. And an important part of this is parsing through the data, the raw data in the table, in order to display this. And then here are those different methods that we're performing, just the different functions on the data here. Output, there's the invalid emails, average days in a course, showing students in a particular program, and then removing a record. So that is the output. to the definitions of the methods for the student objects here, you can kind of figure out what's going to happen there just from the header file. And here, there's a few things in order to make that happen. In particular, for the number of days left to complete, since that is an array, I'm using a for loop just to loop through each one of those 3 courses. And then here are the getters, just a simple return for those fields, and the setters, enabling us to set those fields. And then here's the rest of the displaying the headers for our output, and then printing a particular student record. Okay, so that's that. And now the bulk of it here is going to be parsing through the table. So here is the parse method. This is what enables us to parse through it. Here is the student, which an array is being created for the number of students that we are going to instantiate. There's going to be 5 of them here, so that's also a set array number of students here. Okay, so that student class is going to be invoked within this roster class, as seen below here. So here's the parse method, that's what's going to do it. And then we're going to add the student records to this roster as we parse through it. And then these are the method declarations for those different displays and things that we wanted to do with the data that I showed before. Okay, and here's the meat of the roster CPP, in particular, the parsing method. So here is how it parses, and it's looking for the commas in that data table. They're delimited by commas. So it's looking for the comma and then extracting the substring, in this case in front of the comma, and then after that for each one of these, the first name, the last name, and so forth, for the substring found between the commas. So I just defined a right-hand side for the index of where the portion is before this first comma, and then left-hand side starting from the portion right after that comma is what's happening there. And so it's going through and then creating a new name, just a new variable name here for use within this method, to be able to build this array, parsing through everything. So once it parses through everything, and here in the degree program, I set the default to the first type, and then the second type just searches for a letter within the word in the particular spot to figure out which one is being identified there. So that's what's happening with this if statement. And then here it adds a new record for with all those variables in there. Okay, and then this add method actually invokes down here that student class to create the student objects. Okay, and then these student objects are being added to the parsed array. Okay, student roster array. And so that's what's happening here. And then in order to display them, there's a print all here, and it's using those getters, the get methods from the student header and CPP file. And then again, these are those different functions that we wanted to do, and this is the actual mechanics of how that's done. A for loop to loop through all of the email addresses and looking for instances where it's missing an @ sign or missing a period, or if it has a space, then it's going to say that that's invalid. Okay, that's how it's going to identify the invalid emails. Okay, and then now we want to do the average here. This one's pretty straightforward. Again, it's looping through the roster of student array, and then it's going to add the days to complete. It's 3 courses again, so it's going to add those 3 together and then divide by 3 here, and then display that. Okay, and then here is the grouping, picking out only students within a particular degree program. And again, it's going to loop through that array of the roster of students, the array that we created, and it's going to just return with the get function, and then use the print for the single student record once it finds one to display that. Okay, and here we're going to remove a student record by entering the student ID here. That's going to be the argument passed in, and then it's going to print. This is a little tricky here. It's going to swap actually the student identified within this for loop with the last student in the list, and then it's going to remove it from the index so that it's no longer displayed. Okay, but when this happens, the last one in the index is actually going to get swapped with the one that I'm trying to remove. So I need to swap that back with the one after it so that it recorrects the order of the display. So that's what's happening here to reswap. All right, so that's how the student ID is being removed. It's not actually being deleted. It's just sort of, yeah, being removed from the index. Okay, and then if you try to remove again, then it's going to just show that it wasn't found. And that's basically it. Here's the destructor here to get rid of those student objects. And once again, back to the main method. As we saw, here's the raw student data, and that is used to call all the methods that I just described. Once again, I will show the output here, and thank you for listening.